It's time now for the political analysis of Fromm and Fuller. Al Fromm, former political advisor to President Bill Clinton, and Craig Fuller, former political advisor to both Presidents Ronald Reagan and George H.W. Bush. Good morning, all. Hey, Al, I'd like to start with you this week. You know, over the last 7 days, we have a government that's been shut down. About 8 million people took to the streets over the last couple of days with their No Kings protest. And we have ample proof that Donald Trump is tearing down the East Wing of the White House, all at the same time. And, you know, when you look at things like No Kings, it's very impressive on many levels, but where does it get us? I mean, you know, is there any cause and effect that, you know, motivates people to do this?
Well, first, surely the No Kings rallies, I mean, they went over, 250 places in the country and 7, 8 million people show up. It's a pretty uh, large show of force in opposition to Donald Trump and his autocratic ways. The key, really, though, is what's going to come of it. If it's going to be a day's march and people are going to go their own way, uh, nothing much will happen. But if it becomes the foundation of a really broad based public anti Trump movement that carries through to the elections in 2020, even in 2025 in Virginia and New Jersey, and in 2026 in the congressional and gubernatorial elections, and then into the presidential election, it will have meant something pretty significant. You know, I'm usually pretty skeptical of these large marches because, at least on the Democratic side, Republicans don't march, but on the Democratic side, they tend to become a potpourri of causes, and don't send a clear message. Well, to be honest with you, I was very, I was leery of this because the other thing that can happen is if there's any violence, it can be really put out of proportion and change the whole message of the day. But this one really seemed different. It seemed like ordinary people attended, what the guys at Bulwark would call the normies, uh, attended. The message was pretty clear and simple. There were a lot of American flags, sort of uh, making the Republican argument that this is a hate America rally pretty uh, pretty ridiculous. Uh, and I so I think this could perhaps become the basis of uh, a move toward maybe a blue wave in 2026. I was struck. I read a piece on the march by George Packer in the Atlantic last night, and I was struck by the sign he used in his lead. The sign read "Radicalized by Basic Decency," and he said just an ordinary guy was holding it. Somebody who you would not expect to be at a rally, maybe. And But I think that's pretty significant. Uh, you combine that with Trump taking the wrecking ball to the East Wing to build his ballroom, the East Wing of the White House to build his ballroom. He seems to think it's a palace that he owns and not the people's house. Yeah, so you add that together. Now he's asked the Justice Department for $230 million. So he wants to pillage the palace to pay for his pain and suffering uh, because he was prosecuted and in most of the court cases that went forward found guilty. Actually, I mean, uh, I think that maybe the combination of all of this will actually finally break through and uh, and the kind of autocratic, corrupt, administration that he's running will become much more apparent, and it will have could have a very impact on the election. I heard last night that in the New Jersey race, there's some question about uh, uh, Mikey Sherrill because uh, of some $7 million that basically her husband earned when she got into the House, and so her disclosure went up by $7 million the first year of her term in the House. And in effect, and that seems to have broken through. But meanwhile, Trump taking hundreds of millions of dollars for his crypto fraud and all these other things, haven't just sort of like water off a duck's back. So maybe the combination of 8 million people out there protesting, of taking a wrecking ball to one of the symbols of democracy, for it to build a garish ballroom that he thinks will make him look like a presidential palace, and now asking the government to pay him, basically stealing from the government because he committed crimes and he was charged for them. Uh, Maybe all that will finally start to break through. And after 6 years of Craig and I talking about how it's going to catch up with him, maybe it will.
Craig, could a Republican run on a No Kings platform?
I think it's possible. I mean, I think you have to shape the dialogue and the conversation in a way that reaches people, and that may be a phrase that works. I'm hearing the phrase consistently that Trump, he's simply gone too far. And whether it's watching backhoes tearing apart the East Wing of the White House, or it's the tariff policy, or it's any of the other things he engages in, this notion that it's just gone too far, I think, is also a powerful message. And you're hearing it from Republicans. You're hearing it from people who say they voted for him, but they haven't seen their expenses at the grocery store go down. They haven't seen inflation go down. They don't feel better about the economy. And they're watching a guy spend, hundreds of millions of dollars on this facility at the White House. And I can go back to that, but I do want to talk about the No Kings March, because I'm in agreement with what Al said. The way I look at it is I think at this stage in an election cycle, which is still very early, elections a year from this November, I think what you have to pay attention to are the people that I would consider opinion leaders in their communities, not the talking heads on the programs on Sunday, but people in the community that others turn to with the question, well, what do you think? Because they trust and value, a particular neighbor's view of things. And when you see 8 million people out marching, you're seeing the opinion leaders in community after community out there taking action. And that is showing millions more that this is significant. There hasn't been a single day political protest, anything like this, since 1970. I heard one historian say. So this is really quite remarkable. Now, there are reports the White House staff and maybe the president are very concerned about it, but they look for things that will attract our attention away from it. But it's unique. I happened to be in Chicago this past weekend, and President Trump last week was talking about how people in Chicago love him. There are MAGA hats everywhere. He's brought peace and harmony to the community. Well, we toured around, actually. It was a nice tour. We traveled around. I did not see one MAGA hat. I saw a lot of happy people. I didn't see anybody protesting for or against anything. They were enjoying themselves on a beautiful weekend in Chicago. He has such a distorted reality with regard to what's going on in these communities that I think he's missing the point. And I think people out there do believe he's gone too far.
I agree that a lot of people think he's gone too far, even on things they'd like to see him do, like on immigration, where I think significant number, perhaps even a majority of Americans believe that uh, illegal immigrants, particularly those who've committed crimes, should be deported, but they don't want to see jack troops in the with masks in the cities, uh, you know, uh, raiding parking lots and workplaces and separating families and all that. So but I think it all goes together. The No King's message is not a new American message. It was the message of the revolution. It's why we're a democracy, because we didn't want to have a king. So I mean, I think that you probably couldn't get a more true American message. Uh, uh, and Not too long after that, revolution, American Revolution, and the beginning of the Republic, George Washington, in his uh, farewell address, warned about despicable people like Trump who might try to use the government for their own purposes, and uh, so this country has a very strong no kings tradition. The other thing that was really striking about it is the way the Republicans reacted. I mean, Mike Johnson, who we at some point early in his reign as Speaker had praised for making some deals, seems to really have gone off the deep end in talking about these being hate America rallies, and his refusal to seat the new congresswoman from Arizona because she's the 218th vote uh, to release the Epstein files. I mean, I just think, in keeping the Congress out of session while the government's out of session. Uh, but to top it all, Trump does, has an AI name of him dumping excrement on the people after the march. That was his reaction. I mean, it's like in feudalism, the king's dumping shit on his serfs, and I mean. I guess what I see is the way that he acts and the way his cronies are starting to act so reinforce this message of that they think they don't think they're elected representatives of the people. They think they're kings or royalty that has been decreed by God, and I think eventually it's got to catch up.
Craig, you have the last word.
Well, I want to go back to the question about the East Wing of the White House, because to me it's just a travesty. I have been around Washington a long time. I've had the good fortune of actually attending state dinners. I know many people, as does Al, who attend state dinners. The state dining room in the East Wing, which is where these dinners are held, holds about 140 people. If you do it in the East Room, which used to be the East Room, that holds about 200 people. I do not know one person who's attended a state dinner, and certainly I have never felt that the dinner would have been so much better if we just had another 800 people around us. I mean, this is just ludicrous, and it's a sign of Trump's transactional nature. I think he feels if he has more seats, he can raise more money, and the whole point of a state dinner is to have an elegant, intimate, limited experience with the leaders of our country, the leaders of the visiting country. That's what makes for a quality experience. I think President Trump totally misunderstands what should be happening in these events. He's just looking to, frankly, sell more tickets, bring in more donors. I will say the danger of all this is, imagine the poor person that has to figure out who gets in and who gets out when you can seat 1,000 people, which is what he's now talking about.
Well, we have to leave it there. Al Fromm, Craig Fuller, thank you so much indeed. We will see you next week.